Abraham Lincoln's problems were not confined to fighting rebels alone. The president's unwieldy cabinet included former conservative Whigs, Free Soil Whigs, and Union Democrats. 4 had been his rivals for the Republican presidential nomination. Nearly all were privately sure they could do a better job than their chief. Secretary of State William H. Seward hoped to replace Lincoln. Secretary of the Treasury Salmon P. Chase wanted to replace Seward. Mary Todd told her husband to get rid of both of them. Instead, Lincoln fired War Secretary Simon P. Cameron, a Pennsylvania boss so corrupt, said Lincoln, that the only thing he wouldn't steal was a red-hot stove. The new Secretary of War was Edwin M. Stanton, an able, ruthless war Democrat from Ohio, who worried about what he believed to be Lincoln's painful imbecility. On one thing, the cabinet was agreed. General George McClellan was not moving fast enough against the Confederates. The Army Secretary of War Stanton said, has got to fight or run away. The champagne and oysters on the Potomac must be stopped.
Dear Ellen, I can't tell you how disgusted I am becoming with these wretched politicians. They are a most despicable set of men. Seward is a meddling, officious, incompetent little puppy. The president is nothing more than a well-meaning baboon. George McClellan.
The president pored over military books, asked officers for advice, and in exasperation suggested that if General McClellan does not want to use the Army, I would like to borrow it for a time. Finally, he ordered McClellan to move on Manassas Junction and then proceed overland to take Richmond. But McClellan would not move and took to his bed with a fever. McClellan did not want to fight the vast Confederate army he had convinced himself now occupied northern Virginia. Instead, he proposed to float his army to Fortress Monroe, at the tip of the finger of land between the James and York rivers. Then race up the peninsula to seize the Confederate capital. Impatient for any action, Lincoln agreed. McClellan would move in mid-March. It had been 8 months since the Northern Army had crawled back into Washington after Bull Run.
February 9th, 1862. Dear Mr. President, General McClellan has almost ruined your administration and the country. He is a do-nothing. He is thinking of the presidency in '64. He is placating the rebels. That's what ails him. Depend upon it. Joseph Medill.
What shall I do? The people are impatient. Chase has no money and tells me he can raise no more. The general of the army, McClellan, has typhoid fever. The bottom is out of the tub. What shall I do?
Washington. Dear Ellen, I went to the White House shortly after tea, where I found the original gorilla, about as intelligent as ever. What a specimen to be at the head of our affairs now. George McClellan.
In the midst of all his troubles, the president delighted in his sons. The oldest, Robert, was away at Harvard, but Willie, 11, and 8-year-old Thomas, known as Tad, had the run of the White House. Willie was studious, liked to compose verse and memorize railroad timetables. He'd raised a boys' battalion from among his schoolmates and invaded cabinet meetings with his troops. In February, he developed what the doctor called bilious fever. His parents sat up night after night to nurse him. On February 20th, Willie died. For 3 months, Mary Lincoln veered between loud weeping and silent depression and sought to communicate with her dead child through spiritualists.
If I had not felt the spur of necessity urging me to cheer Mr. Lincoln, whose grief was as great as my own, I could never have smiled again.
The war left Lincoln little time to mourn. he was soon back working 18 hours a day.